Hey friends, Catherine here from Research Rockstar, and today I'd like to talk about CX. We all know CX is hot. And as a market research professional, you know that CX intersects very heavily with market research. In fact, some of us might even say that CX research is really just a subset of market research. After all, it uses many of the same methodologies. But for some reason, CX is super hot and getting a lot of C-suite attention and budget. So as a market research pro or a team leader, you may be thinking about how to align with this growth area. And the first step is figuring out who's in charge. So here's my question. Who is in charge of CX strategy these days? When you think about companies that you may do business with or companies you may work for, who is in charge of CX? Is the CMO in charge of customer experience? Not necessarily. In fact, recent research from IDG shows that as many as 40% of organizations have a designated CX officer. That's right, a Chief Customer Experience Officer, a CCXO. And we do see some evidence of this in the real world. It doesn't take too much effort to go on and look at articles from different business magazines and IT magazines and so forth, and you'll see quotes from CCXOs from companies like Verizon and Comcast and Citi Cards and Marriott. So clearly there are a lot of big brands that have CX as something that is led by a chief customer experience officer. And you do sometimes also see some variations on that. Sometimes it's like chief customer experience and service officer. So you do see some variations. But how fragmented, how consistent is this? And as somebody who's in market research and might be thinking about planning either for a market research business or a team or your own career, if you are interested in CX, who's in charge of it? And one of the things is that for many of us coming from market research, we tend to have more familiarity and frankly more networking with marketing organizations. So how often are marketing folks actually in charge of CX? Well, there was a really interesting study that was done early in 2018, and I need to give a shout out to the CMO Council who published this study and also to Marketing Charts, which actually did a great job of sharing the study and getting the word out about it. And one of the charts that was really interesting was a chart where they actually had the results from this survey related to the CMO's point of view. So in asking 191 CMOs, are they responsible for CX? Here's what the result was. Only 50% said that they were responsible for customer experience strategy. All right, so 50% are, 50% aren't. So again, seems like it may be pretty fragmented. So this is consistent with the IDG result. What are CMOs in charge of? Well, 82% said that they are the lead on brand development and storytelling. 75% said they are the lead on customer engagement and communications. Now, wait a minute. 75% are responsible for customer engagement, but only 50% are responsible for customer experience. Well, the whole CX area has become so hot, it really has developed as its own practice area. And one of the things that comes up then is if CMOs aren't always the right gateway to CX, that is, if you're trying to get more involved in CX or to sell research to people who are leading CX, we can't always assume that the CMO is the right gateway. So as we see from the CMO Council study, CMOs themselves report that they are not always in charge of CX at their organizations. And so this was interesting because it was a survey of 191 CMOs and other marketing executives at large companies. Now, what does this really mean? So practically, now what? Well, if you are leading a market research agency that's trying to position to focus on CX, after all, CX is super hot, and we are seeing this happen. There are market research agencies that have been pivoting, if you will, repositioning themselves to take advantage of this trend. Well, the CMO may not be your target market. And that could be a little challenging because a lot of market research agencies are used to selling into either the insights team at a company or into the marketing organization. So if that's been your past and now you're trying to get into the CX world, you may find that you need to update your prospecting and your lead nurturing activities. After all, you want to fish where the fish are, and if it's an organization that has a chief customer experience officer, that person and their direct reports may not always be in the same places that you're used to doing your lead generation and marketing activities. Now, if you're a career planner, if you are a market research and insights professional and you're thinking about your own career plan, maybe you are thinking about shifting to take advantage of the CX wave. And it's certainly an option. What I would suggest there is really seek out CX specific networking opportunities because they exist and they are not always the same as the networking opportunities for market research and insights professionals. The easiest thing to get started with is check out some of the CX conferences. There are a number of them. And also check out some of the CX LinkedIn groups. They're really active. And if you've been involved in market research for some time, you're probably on some of the LinkedIn market research groups. Well, not surprisingly, there are also some really super active CX groups on LinkedIn. So a little networking can really be helpful. Now, here's one last tip. If you are trying to get more into CX, if you're a market research and insights, either team leader or just somebody who's thinking about their career, one thing to keep in mind is that if you're going to start trying to appeal to the CX leadership, and really try to get into this space, understand that the CX executives are often responsible not just for CX strategy, but for execution. So it's a really interesting thing because in market research, one of the things we often bemoan is that we can provide research on how to improve things or on customer attitudes or needs, but we don't always have visibility into how that research is actually applied. So sometimes it's frustrating for us because we feel like, well, we give this great information, but we don't always know what happens with it. Well, it's a little bit different in CX because in a lot of CX organizations, they're responsible for both the strategy and the execution of that strategy. So that's really an important point. So they're likely to value research thinking that emphasizes both informing the strategy as well as research thinking that gets at measuring the actual results. What was the impact? Now, sometimes measuring results is a financial result, but not always. There are obviously other things, other metrics, other KPIs, key performance indicators that are relevant to CX. So something to keep in mind is, yes, we definitely have a lot to offer in terms of your market research methodology expertise that does apply to CX, but just make sure that you are doing it in a way that shows that you have experience with methodologies and design of research projects that don't just inform the strategy, but also allow for the measurement of the success of that strategy. I hope you found the conversation today useful. If you have any questions, please do post them here, and please do like, share, and subscribe whether you're enjoying this as a YouTube video or as a podcast on iTunes. And do go ahead and check us out on researchrockstar.com for your market research training and staffing needs. Again, I do welcome all questions, so please don't be shy. Have a great day.